thank you everybody for tuning in to the Agent Excel podcast. And today I'm going to be doing a solo show. But first, before I start, I think it's important to note that we've got a new setup here. So everybody who's been following my journey for the last 2 years or so with this podcast, you guys know I went through like podcast 1.0. That was Chris, who sitting at his home office, doing it through a Zoom. I think it was probably 55 episodes or so that I had my microphone backwards. And so we went through that journey, and then it started to get some more traction. And I decided, hey, we need to get a podcast studio. And so got a podcast studio, got the lighting, got the audio all set up, paid somebody to get the studio together. And then we found out that Bowers doesn't know how to set up cameras, lighting. So I was able to fund the project with money, but I wasn't able to have the skills to work it all. So I actually got a podcast producer. Johnny, would you say that is that what you would call yourself, as a podcast producer? What would you be?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, producer,
cool.
Director.
Okay, producer, director. He has no microphone. Didn't know I was actually going to call him out, but I think it's important to note that there is somebody here that's making this look a little bit better. Also, got a YouTube channel now. So now, so I was on a podcast earlier today as a guest, and the guy was asking me some questions like, how do you just start things without knowing where they're going to go? And I was like, you know what? I just place bets on things. I place bets, and then it's just like get it 40% there and start, and then go, and then see if you actually gain any traction. And if you do, then you're going to get to a spot, if you start gaining traction, where you're going to start getting embarrassed a little. And so that's where I feel is it got a little bit of traction. And then I wanted to, I got some listeners, I got people, there was some expectations. And that's when I got a little bit to a spot where I felt like embarrassed that it wasn't at the quality that I wanted. And here we are. So this is, I think, now podcast version 3.0 for me. So now we're in the studio, audio is good, lighting's good. Now we're on YouTube because I feel like my light is going to look good on my face so I can put myself on YouTube. So here we are. But today is a solo show. I haven't did a solo show in a long time. And so I wanted to I just hit the 3-year mark at EXP Realty, and EXP Realty it's changed my life as far as my finances. It's changed the way, EXP's really changed my whole entire financial future. And it was 3 years ago when I joined EXP. And so I just wanted to kind of, for the listeners who've listened to this show long enough, you've heard pieces of the story interjected as I'm, interviewing guests. There's something that'll come up where I tell my story, but I don't think you guys have ever heard it from start to now. And so that's what I want to do. So I'm going to back us up a bit. I'm going to take us back, Chris, who, been at EXP for 3 years, but I've been at probably 6 or 7 brokerages in my 19-year career, and there was 2 brokerages that I was at the longest. There was Keller Williams. I think I was there for about 6 years, and then I went to HomeSmart after that, like a transaction fee company, for about 6 years. And so, Keller Williams was a great company for me. It was a company where I learned a lot of my business models. It was really like the foundation, I can say, to a lot of my business. It's a profit share company. So if you bring agents into the company, you can actually, make some money profit. But profit is different than revenue share, which is the EXP model. And so, I made good friends there. Like I said, they really helped me build the foundation of being a realtor. And I'll always say that and give them credit for that. And then I went to HomeSmart from there. I'm not really for sure the reason why, but HomeSmart is, if you guys, anybody listening to this around the country, you know what Keller Williams is. I mean, they're well established. HomeSmart is in Arizona. At one time, I think it was the biggest brokerage as far as agent count, but it's more of like a transaction fee type company. You pay per transaction. And that was a great company. My wife was, she actually worked in corporate before she was a realtor and joined up with the team, the Bowers team. She was on the corporate side, and I was a realtor there. And that was a great company. Like I said, transaction fee. I think 1 year there I'd sold 135 units 1 year. And so I was usually on the leaderboard for unit counts or volume or whatever that is, but I was usually up on those charts. And but what it lacked a little bit for me was collaboration. For the people who were at the top, it was really hard to, I felt like we didn't really have any dynamic of meeting up and really helping each other. No one was looking at each other in a way where they could really help each other out. Or maybe, hey, I'm open to say maybe I just wasn't invited to that party. Maybe I wasn't cool enough to get into the club. Or maybe it wasn't there. Maybe I just, didn't check my emails, like I don't, a lot of times, and maybe I was invited. But the point is I just felt like I was selling a lot of homes and I didn't have a lot of places to go and talk about what my problems were. And that's how I got introduced to EXP. And so I wasn't really exploring EXP. I was building a really cool company that was making, really good profits, and it was getting a little bit bigger than I could handle. So as you guys know, I, barely got through high school. And so I sometimes will say that my real estate business got a little bit smarter than me when it got bigger. And so I needed to be, I needed to get in rooms with realtors that were doing bigger things than me and people that were actually willing to like share their playbooks and their systems. So I'm, at HomeSmart closing 135 homes. There are challenges to that for sure. So if listeners are listening to this and like, oh my gosh, that sounds amazing. It is. But there's also some challenges. It doesn't matter at what level you get to in transactions, you get to a spot where you've got to figure some things out. So I'm at the gym about 3.5 years ago, and I'm listening to a podcast, and the podcast is Next Level Agents. I've been listening to that podcast for probably 8 years. And there was a guest. So the host is Kevin Kaufman. There was a guest, Dave Jasinski. I'm sitting at Mountainside Fitness. Not sitting. I was trying to get abs. Still don't have any. And so I was sitting there, and I'm working out. And I'm listening to this podcast, morning time. Dave Jasinski is the guest, and he's talking about how he closed like 150 units that year. And he's got 5 kids at the time, under the age of 14. And he's saying how he wants to be a good dad and get to all 5 of his kids' events, sell 150 homes. And he said he doesn't really leave the office that much. And I was like, wait, what? Like I sold 135, leaving the office all the time. I don't have, 5 kids. I have none. I'm still trying to take care of myself and trying to raise myself. And so I was like, how is this guy doing that much, not leaving his office? So I was willing to admit that day that even though at HomeSmart, I might be at the top, or in that club where we were selling a lot of homes, but I didn't have the lifestyle I necessarily wanted. I didn't have the business models. I didn't have the systems in place. And so as I'm listening to this podcast, Dave Jasinski is explaining how he's running his business, and I'm just kind of blown away. At the end, he leaves his phone number, and I'm the guy who I'm just like, wait, like he's doing this game better than me. He's playing the game better than me. And so I've always been somebody who's like, hey, I got to go reach out and find help no matter what level I think that I might be at. And I reached out to him and he called me, we talked. And I don't know if I knew this at the time when I was listening to the podcast, but he was in Chandler, Arizona. I believe at the time was in like North Phoenix, North Scottsdale area. So we're 45 minutes to an hour apart. But he asked me to come to his office. And I remember going to his office out in Chandler, and I walk in, and I remember he asked me something along the lines. And you guys, this was 3.5-ish years ago, so don't remember everything. I kind of like remember the feeling I had, so I'm just describing it the best I can remember. But walking to his office, and I remember something along the lines of, hey, do you have a lead generation problem or a leverage problem? That was one of the first things that he asked me. And I was like, closed 135 homes. Don't think I really have a lead generation problem. I think I have a leverage problem. I know as I'm selling more homes and more revenues coming through my door, this office is feeling tighter. And I didn't know as a business owner if that made sense. So I'm thinking like, whoa, at this much, revenue coming in, the walls are getting tighter in the office. So does that mean at scale, the more money I make, the tighter this office gets? That didn't feel comfortable. And so I told him I don't have a lead generation problem. I think I have a leverage problem. And we went down this road where he started asking me some questions. And he was asking me, well, hey, who's showing the homes for you? And I was like, some buyers agents are showing homes for me. He's like, how are you paying them? I'm like, on like some 50-50 splits. And he's like, wait, let's look at that there. So let's look at the profit and loss. So we started talking about this, and he's like, well, I was like, how do you do it? And he said, I have a showing partner. And so he's like, I have a showing partner on salary. And we just went through that whole entire model. And so I left there and was just blown away. And I had told him, I was like, dude, that showing partner model that you have would probably change my whole economic model, my whole profit margins. I think that I could close the same amount of deals, make a lot more money on how you were doing it. So listening to him on a podcast, going to his office, him asking me questions, and I just left there and I was like, I like that. Like, I like how that feels, somebody who's talking to me like they're a partner. And so he had told me, hey, I've got a contract that I have, and I've spent like $8,000 with a lawyer on this contract that I use. It's an employment contract. And anyways, some follow up afterwards. He was like, hey, well, I'll give you this contract for free that I paid a lot of money for if you join up with me at EXP. He explained like stocks and revenue share, and I was like, dude, I don't know who you think I am, but like, I don't even know. I don't even know what a stock is. And don't get me wrong, I understand what a stock is, but I don't really understand what a stock means to me when I'm in pain trying to grow my business. So when you're like, hey, you can get some EXP stock and revenue share, I'm like, I don't even know really what that means to me right now. And so I was like, I'm growing a business and I'm having some problems. That's really my only focus. And, from there, he explained a little bit of EXP to me, and it was probably like 4 or 5 months that went on. Like, and through that time, he was just reaching out, hey, how can I help you? But let's back that up. Like, when I left his office and he said, hey, I can give you this contract for free if you join up with me at EXP, or you're going to have to go pay for it on your own. Well, me being me, stubborn Chris, I was like, no, bro, I'm not going to join up with you at EXP. I'll just have my lawyer draft this up. So I think I paid $8,000 or $9,000 to my lawyer to draft up what I needed from him. And so I started his model. But what's cool about Dave is he just said he wouldn't give me the contract, which is fine. But he gave me all these other playbooks. He was like, hey, you need to go out and make this. This is how you do the ad. This is how you get this person. Like, this is the job description. So I took like the Dave Jasinski team, just edited that out of the whole job on the profile, put the Bowers team. So like everything was kind of the same. So he gave me some of the systems to go find this role to help with my problems, but wouldn't give me like the contract. That's cool. So there was a lot of help in this. So got the lawyer to draft this up. I spent a lot of my own money and started running this business model, and it was beautiful. It was beautiful. And then what was cool is as I'm building this model, he's inviting me to some of these masterminds. I'm getting in rooms of people 40, 50 people who are building big businesses, and they're talking at a higher level. And I'm like, whoa, like, this is what I think I'm missing at HomeSmart. Like, it's sometimes you don't even know. You guys ever been at a spot where you don't even know what you're missing? Like, if somebody would have said, hey, Chris, what are you missing? I don't think I could have wrote it down because I didn't think I was missing anything. It wasn't until I actually like saw what they were doing, or it wasn't until I saw the high level conversation that people were having until I realized like these are the rooms I want to be in. So eventually, let's speed this up a little bit. I go to like an EXP conference at EXP Con, probably 2022 maybe, and it was in Vegas. And there, me and my wife are sitting there at EXP Con, and we're like, my wife's like, I'm in. And she was like, I think we should join this company. So here we are. I wanted to give you the backstory of how I actually joined EXP. It was something where after I knew about the company, it was probably 6 months until I actually made the decision. And it was just, I kept coming to more and more events and hanging around with more and more players. And that was something that was super exciting to me as a business owner. So anyways, as I made the transition from HomeSmart to EXP, here's the deal. I had 19 pending at the time. And so if there's anybody listening to this right now and they're like, whoa, like how would you ever change brokerages if you have pending deals? Now, I have conversations with agents often. They're like, hey, you know what? Like I have this listing and I don't know how I would transfer it. I always tell them like, hey, I had 19 pending. And so that stuff can happen. We made the transition. We came over to EXP. I've been super happy ever since. And so as I started, here's how I look at EXP is for the first probably 4 or 5 months, it was just about solving my own problems. And so I didn't even really know I had these problems. Like that was just my life at HomeSmart. Like that was just my life. And then when I started hanging around with other people, I was like, these guys are just like running at a higher level. They actually they exposed the problems that I was having because I wanted to hang out with them and run business like they were. So as I started building my company more like them, having a little bit more leverage, I was starting to I felt like my head above water in business. And as I say this, like I was making really good income. Like I think it's important for everybody to know that you can be making good income, a really good income, and still talk to people and say, I'm having challenges in my business. You can still say, hey, I'm not actually like fully happy with what I'm doing. Like, so I don't want to think like, hey, when someone says like, hey, this is challenging, that like they're going broke. And so as I started fixing my business models and feeling super confident, that felt very good to me. And then all of a sudden, some people started to be entered into my life. And I feel like this was God's plan. Like that's where this is very special to me, what's going on with, building my EXP organization. As I don't know if this was the first person I met, but, I'm going to go through a few scenarios now because some people will say like, Chris, how has EXP like financially changed your life? And it's so cool to think of that my life has been changed financially by EXP by just helping people out. And so just like Dave Jasinski helped me out. Now, here's the deal. Everybody out there right now is probably like, well, I mean, Dave was probably only helping you build your business because he was trying to recruit you. And do you know what I can say confidently is I'm cool with that. Like, I think Dave gets like $2,800 a year based off me joining EXP. So if that guy helped change my business life forever with building like systems in my business, and I'm getting all this benefit, and I'm now running a cool business that feels comfortable and I'm confident again while I'm running this business, and he gets $2,800. If someone said right now that he was trying to recruit me, I would be like, okay, like he should probably go and try to recruit more people, because I look at it like I feel really good about this and where I'm at. So I'm super thankful that he probably maybe even got on that podcast to just find an agent to recruit. I'm so glad that I'm who I am and that I'm vulnerable and reached out and asked for somebody, hey, I need help. I'm glad that I went there and met him. I'm glad that he was trying to recruit me. And so I'm glad he brought me into the community because I'm a better person for it and I was building a better business for it. And so now I meet this guy, Daniel, and he comes to me and he's on a team and he's like, hey, I'm having a kid in like 6 months and I'm on a team and I need to figure out how to get my own business. And I sit with him in my Peoria office that I have in the conference room. And I sit down, I say, Daniel, hey dude, I get some internet leads. I think you'd be really good at that. He said, I got a kid. He's coming in 6 months. I just want to figure out how to get my own business, not on this team. I don't make a lot of money on the team. And I said, bro, I'll give you my playbooks. You got to put in the work. And how I talk to everybody is I'm like, I can be, I look at brokerages as if these are gyms. The brokerages are the gyms. You can be in a prison gym. You can be at a, really cool gym like Lifetime. You could be at any gym. You can get abs at any gym. I look at it as if like I was the personal trainer. So when he came in, I was like, hey bro, like you've got to lift the weights. Like I'm going to tell you what macros to eat. I'm going to tell you what you have to lift to be in the shape you want to be in. And like, but you got to do the hard work. I could just tell the kid had the dog in him. Like I knew he was going to do it. And so I just saw him start closing transactions. I gave him my playbook for internet leads and told him what to do. Here's the systems, plug in. And see, here's the deal. I was just a guy closing a lot of homes and I was needing leverage. I was needing more of like, how do you accomplish all of this and still live a personal life? He was having a different struggle. He was having the struggle of like, I just want to figure out how to get business. And as I started giving him my playbooks and he started closing some transactions, like he started building a solid business. And then his kid came 6 months later. He was super confident in his business. And then all of a sudden he's calling me and he's like, hey, now my kid's here and I've got a lot of business now. How do I do the showing stuff? And I'm like, oh, here we are. You sound like you might be at the same challenge that I was having. But that's the stuff that I want to like. I have more stories and I'm going to go through a few more of these. But like I want to stop now and I want everybody to like connect to, did Dave Zajenski try to recruit me? The answer is probably yes. Am I running a better business now because he recruited me? And the answer is yes. And did I meet up with Daniel to recruit him? And the answer is yes. And will Daniel say that he's running a better business now? And the answer is yes. These all can be true. I don't want to get in this land of like, is recruiting good? Is recruiting bad? Like, recruiting to me is caring enough about somebody to ask them questions, and you either try to help them or guide them to somebody who can help them. That's what recruiting is to me. So he now has 2 kids. You know, he's been with us now for a while. He has 2 kids now, runs a really cool business. He's turned into a good friend of mine. And that stuff's special to me. Like, I now know I have an impact on him. And so when people are like, but Chris, like, you just go out and recruit agents. And I'm like, yes, I do. Yes, I do. They say it sometimes in a way where it's like this, like, oh, like, do you recruit? And I'm like, I lean into that. I'm like, yes, I recruit. I help change people's lives. Like, I have people around me that I know that were making $200,000 and now made $800,000 last year. Like, that's special to me. Like, I feel like a personal trainer at the gym who's like got a chunky person now with some abs. And I'm like, yeah, like, go tell that person, like, I mean, but was like the personal trainer like trying to make some money? Like, yeah, the personal trainer was trying to make some money because they're good at that. And you also aren't chunky anymore and have abs. Like, that's how this world works. And so I just want to note, because I think sometimes like we get in these zones where we get like limiting beliefs or like these stigmas on stuff. And I'm like, get that off me. Like, I don't have to believe in that stuff. Like, I can come from this from a different angle. I think of like, you know, look at things differently, and the things you look at change. And so, or change the way you look at things, and the things you look at change. So then we've got, you know, Jordan. You know, I'm teaching a class one day. I've got a whole whopping 3 people there at this class. I was that cool. I felt like I was like the, you know, like person who like shows up to the fair that they asked to sing that has like 5 people in the crowd, and I like set up my own guitar right before. That's what I felt like. And so like 3 people were there. What's really cool about this is Jordan's, you know, in that crowd of 3. And I think he was sitting in the front. And I teach this class, and afterwards we go to lunch, and I talk to Jordan, and he's over at Keller Williams, and we go to lunch, and I'm asking him some of his concerns. And, you know, just now he finally, like a week later, he joins EXP with me, helping him build his company. That's special to me. Like, it's just so cool to see. And then I meet this guy on Instagram one day. His name's Mike. And I think we connected on Instagram over cold plunging. I don't even know how we knew each other through Instagram, but I'm a cold plunger. He's a cold plunger. We would kind of communicate. And I knew his business model at the brokerage he was at. So I hit him up. I've always been this guy. Always will be this guy. I hit him up in his DMs. I was like, hey, looked up your production, and I know your guys' business model at your team. I think I could meet up with you and help you make more money by doing things a different way. Anyways, I set up a Starbucks appointment with him just to talk to him. I brought his numbers. Well, anyways, he canceled the first time. Canceled on me. I think he had to go to an inspection, which is fair. I follow up, hey, dude, we still got to get this meeting. And we get this meeting. I walk in, and I walk into this meeting with a folder of all of his numbers because I just printed them off the MLS. And I walked in, I did some math, and I said, hey, Mike, this is probably going to be one of the more awkward conversations you've ever had, but I'm going to sit here and go over these numbers with you, and I think I could show you a different way to do the same amount of transactions but make more money. And I don't know if your brokerage has ever told you this. They probably never talked to you like this because their model probably is set up where they don't tell you this, which is fair, right? He signed an agreement with them. That's how they work, honest business. But I was just willing to talk to him a different way because I'm not incentivized by not telling him this stuff. So I started explaining how he could like make money a different way. And so what was funny is we were talking about internet leads, and he was saying, hey, but at my brokerage, we get internet leads. I'm like, cool. So you get internet leads at your brokerage. And then so what do you pay your brokerage when you close those? And he told me it was a percentage, a high percentage. I was like, why don't you like just go off on your own and get those internet leads? And he's like, can you do that? And I was like, do you think that like me and all the other guys in Arizona, they get internet leads, we go to like Silicon Valley at like Google, and we do some like dance behind the building, and like we're the ones initiating this club? And he's like, looked at me weird. And I was like, I can help you out with building this, and I'm not going to take a percentage from you. And so that's special to me, man. Like, Mike is now my good friend, a dear friend. He's a special guy, and I'm just super thankful that, you know, I was showing him different models, and now he's making so much more money. He's independent. You know, he now has his last names on his signs and not my sign, like my name. And so I take all these, and why I'm explaining this to you guys is because I want people to now know that I went through a process where my business was changed by being recruited. And then I started helping people out and building their business. And if that's what we're calling recruiting, that's cool. I just call it asking people enough questions to find out how you can help them. And so that was Mike. And so we've got Nolan. This one's super special to me because this guy's turned into one of my best friends. And, I meet him through an agent in our crew. And to see what this guy has accomplished since I met him. The first time I met him was at Thirsty Lion. That's a restaurant here in Arizona. And sat at a lunch, and, he had just joined a real brokerage, and he just moved there like 2 months before. And I was talking to him. We were going through some stuff. And, like I said, he's turned into my best friend. We took 4 vacations together, his wife and I. But I think, and I don't know if he would want me to actually say this out loud. I'm going to say it just because I think that I need to. So, Nolan, if you do ever listen to this, I apologize. But I think he probably made like $700,000 last year. And so that was a 2 year ago sitting at Thirsty Lion. And the kid was just trying to figure out how to close deals on a different structure. He was trying to find a way to be independent. He wanted to find a way where he was confident in his business, where he could wake up every day and feel secure about his business model. And, I didn't know that he would turn into my best friend, but that's special to me to see someone who went from, he always made decent money, but, he sent me a screenshot yesterday, and it made me so happy because he had like $142,000 in checks sitting on his desk. Like, the kid's so busy. That's like the least of his concerns in the day, because he's just about giving good customer service. Like, he can't even get to the bank, nor does he need to get to the bank. That's not his priority for the day. It's just like he just wants to go help people. And to see that person who you sat at a restaurant with that was just saying, hey, I want to find some confidence in my business. And I don't think he said it that way. That's how I interpreted it. And just to see like that, like today he texts me and he's like, I got a $16,000 check coming Friday, and I got a $14,000 that can't come tomorrow. And I'm just like, dude, I've had those months, bro. Like, I've had those months. They're special. And so that's important to me. I just wanted to note that. I actually just got emotional. I actually was getting a little choked up there because, like I said, he's turned into my best friend, and like, he's 29, I'm 41. I actually look at him now and I'm like, I don't have any kids, nor is he the age where he could be my kid, but like, I can actually look at him more of like a younger brother. And I'm just like, man, if I could help you not do what I did for 10 years, like if you could just be 41 like me and be like 20 times ahead, like if I'm in my 50s and he's in his 40s and he's, so much more ahead of me, that's my goal. It made me realize like how, like, I root for him. Like, when we're on vacations and he's closing all these transactions, I'm just like, I'm super stoked. I'm actually more excited about his pending transactions than I almost my own anymore. Like, I just gotten so numb to it. So seeing it happen through someone else is special. So, I have more stories. I don't know if I should keep going. Hopefully I'm not boring anybody, but I really I don't know if I'm almost in this podcast, like being the defender for these recruiting companies. Maybe I am. Maybe I'm the one coming out now and being like, hey, any of these companies that are rev share companies, like I'm the one where someone could send the podcast and say like, whoa, like that guy really believes in that type of a business model. And so I'm actually going to keep going because this is my show. We've got good lighting now. I'm on YouTube now, so I'm going to keep going. So, and I actually, just so you guys know, I'm probably going to have to look away every once in a while and sniffle because that one story made me actually emotional. So now I've got the sniffles. And so I got to deal with that for the next 27 minutes. So here we go. Get that one out of the way. So now, I've got this guy, Ari, that I meet, and he's on a team when I meet him. And, I meet the kid and I'm like, the kid's I think he was 19 or 20 when I met him. And I'm like, dude, like you have the it factor, bro. He's on a team. And long story short, he was on a team a year and a half ago when I met him. He owns his own team now with his own last name on it. and he has a team now, his own team, and they have 14 pending as of the other day when I text him. Like, the kid is 21 now. I met him when he was on a team. I was teaching a class one day. That's how I met him in person. We went to, we did a few Zooms where I was like, hey, can I just help you, like, for just like a coaching call? Like, after the class, like, let's just jump on a coaching call. I probably did like 7 or 8 with him. And to know that he went from being on a team to now has a team, and he has 14 homes pending right now. Like, that is ridiculous to me. And to know that I'm, like, again, let's go back to the personal trainer. I don't think the personal trainer can walk around like every day and be like, yo, you see my homie? He's got abs, I don't know if that's the way you do it, but I have to say, if I was a personal trainer and I got someone who was chunky and got them abs, I'd probably be the one hyping them up and be like, I was a part of that. But, they all lifted their own weights. They all had their own reputations. They all brought their work ethic to the party. But, just to give them, I guess, maybe the confidence, the playbooks, that's special. And then I got a few other ones I want to mention. I met Trevor. He was one of the number one agents, I think, if I'm not mistaken, the number one agent at one of the boutique brokerages here in Arizona, the number one individual agent there. And, he joined up with us, and he was already, he was cracking. He was already selling, a lot of real estate. But when I met him, it was like early December, and he moved over like 3 weeks after I met him. We met at a conference here in Scottsdale, and he just posted on his Instagram that he was the number one EXP agent in all of Arizona. Like, we're a pretty big brokerage, y'all. Like, he was the number one individual agent in all of Arizona. And to know, like, that, he's my friend, that's special. And so I'm going to, one more last, or no, actually 2. I'm 2. I lied. Two more. Sorry if I'm boring you, but these are special to me. So maybe I'm just talking to myself and I'm stoked. So, I've got Tyler. Tyler, I met on Facebook. So Tyler's in Nevada, guys. I'm on Facebook one day, and I get a friend request. And I accept the friend request. And he sends over like just a candid message to me, like, hey, if you know of anybody in Nevada, like, I'll give you a 30% referral fee. It was totally from the approved friendship to the DM. I don't think he could type that fast. So I know that this guy had these DMs on lock. And I messaged him back, and I said something along the lines of like, hey, man, thanks for the message. How's business? Opened up a conversation. I'm just always curious. I asked him how his business was. He started answering. I started asking more some questions. We started going down this road where I was like, hey, dude, you want to jump on a Zoom tomorrow? And he's like, okay. We jumped on a Zoom. I think it was 8 a.m. on a Sunday. It was Saturday when we just met each other on Facebook. We're now friends. He's now my referring partner because this long DM he sent me that was copy and pasted. I was curious, asking him how his business was, and I said, hey, let's jump on a Zoom tomorrow. So the next day, Sunday, 8 a.m., we're on a Zoom. I just asked him some questions. Hey, where's your business at? How can I help? Where are you trying to go? And I help him. I just give him some help. And at the end of the Zoom, about an hour, I'm sitting on my back patio by my pool. He said something along the lines of, why do you do this? And I was like, I don't know, dude. That's a good question. But how do you feel? Like, you good? He's like, yeah, I'm good. I'm like, I'm good too. Like, I really liked helping you out. It was really nice to meet you. And he's like, you just did this on a Sunday for an hour? And I'm like, yeah, what else was I doing today? And he's like, all right. I'm like, I just like sitting on my back patio, and I got a really nice backyard, and I'm helping you out. Like, felt really cool. You good? He's like, I'm good. I'm like, bye. And then over the next few days, he just hits me up. We start talking, ask me some questions. I give him some value, ask me how to do this. Let's do that. He's like, hey, how do you do those internet leads? I sent him an email. I'm like, hey, here's all my systems on how I do it. Just value, man. Like, I just cared about the guy. There was something about that hour where I was like, you know what? If in 20 years he looks back and he's like, even if he never joined EXP, but like in 20 years, if he looked back and he's like, hey, there was this guy Bowers that I knew. He was kind of cool. Like, I don't know where we live in a world anymore where like everything has to have a dollar to it, as if we just don't know how to ask people if they want help and then just try to solve whatever problem that you might be able to help them with. But yeah, I mean, people could easily be listening and say, yeah, you were trying to recruit them to EXP, and I was. But even though I'm trying to recruit someone to EXP, doesn't mean that they can't have value along the way. Like, I just did a Zoom where I helped them out for an hour. That was my time. It's worth a lot. And I'm following up with him. He's asking me questions over the next few weeks. I'm giving him my playbooks to how I built my internet lead business. And so, like, even if he never joined EXP, like, I think he was good. He's always going to be like, that guy's cool, right? Even if I was trying to recruit him, he's always gonna be like, that's a cool guy. And like, okay, so a byproduct now, maybe now he's got someone moving to Arizona and he doesn't join EXP, but he's like, hey, if someone messaged him and was like, hey, I need a realtor in Arizona, I bet you he's like, I know this guy Chris who helped me. So, like, it could be, if you want to get so income based, like, it could be made up in a lot of ways. And so he ended up, like, 2 weeks later, I remember I was like at a Barnes and Nobles, I think. This was during the era, weird, but wasn't driving a car. I was trying to experiment for a minute on, like, whether I could get around this world with no car. I wasn't successful at it. But I remember being at Barnes and Nobles and I'm there, no car. And I'm sitting there and I was just sitting like in the Starbucks and he calls me, we talk. And it was around then when he was like, I think I'm going to join EXP. And I was like, that sounds like a cool story. Why don't you tell me more? He just started telling me more. He's like, I'm not really happy over here at Century 21, and a lot of changes are here and I want to move over. And he moved over, but it gets better. It was about a week. So he's now at EXP, and about a week later, he calls me and he's like, hey, I've got some buddies over at Century 21, my old place, that they don't seem too happy there either. It's like a team of 5. And so it's 2 partners. Do you want to talk to them? And I was like, yeah, I got on a Zoom with them. They're commercial agents in Nevada, do pretty well on commercial and residential. I get on that Zoom with them. Now we got 5 guys on a Zoom, and then we got Tyler who introduced me to him. You got me. And then they're like, hey, we're not really happy here. We see that Tyler's super happy where he is. And they joined. They came over, started helping them, plugging them in. And I mean, it doesn't stop there. There was this guy, Jason, on their team. Jason's on the team, and he, we become friends. That's my homie now in Nevada. And he introduces me to a lady named Jennifer. And so she's like rookie of the year over there in this little city, this little city in Nevada. And she ends up joining us. And then now I get on a Zoom a few weeks ago, and she now knows a brokerage owner in Nevada that owns a little brokerage. Now we're in conversations. And I just wanted to make all these connections so you could see that when someone's like, Chris, how do you have this many people in your EXP organization? I think sometimes they could be like, oh man, was he lucky? Maybe. I always say God's plan. They could say like, man, how'd this all happen? I'm like, I just think that if you put heart into your mission, that like it can go far. And I genuinely care. I mean, ask my wife. I talk more about every one of my organization's transactions more than I do mine. Like, I come home and I'm like, did you see that this person put 4 pending today? She sometimes probably like doesn't even like, I think today I put 3 listings on the market today, 1 closed today, and we sent out a new listing contract for a house to go on the market next week. Like, that was today for me. Like, 3 listings went on the market, 1 closed, and we signed a new contract to list a house next week. But if Tyler hit me up and was like, hey, I put 2 pending today, I'd be like, dope, dude. I'm more stoked in my house for that than I am me, because like, I mean, what am I going to walk around my house and just be jazzed about my own stuff? Like, I'm not that much of my own hype man. But that one was special to me because I like have this whole crew in Nevada now that I would have never have known if it wasn't for him asking to be my friend, getting on a Zoom and just connecting and just really caring about his business. And I do. And then this is my last story, I promise, on this whole thing, but wanted to make those connections and this is going to relate to the podcast. So there's this guy, Ryan, in Washington State, and he joined up with the EXP about 50 days ago. And he's a listener to the podcast. Like, not only was he a listener to the podcast, I had him on as a guest of the podcast last year, and he joined EXP about 50 days ago. He's already brought in, I think, 3 people in Washington since then that are at EXP because he is influential in that community. People notice what he was doing, and he just has like this heart of gold where he likes to help people. And so, one day they're going to be in 5 years, like, how does Chris just have like all these agents in his organization in Washington State? And I'm just going to be like, you know what I mean? I started this podcast one day in my house. I just started this podcast in my house, and the mic was backwards for 56 episodes, and the audio was bad, and then I got a studio and couldn't figure out that. But I just want to make these connections of, one, just not caring so much about how you look as the person trying to get your like voice out there, and start putting more emphasis and weight on the people that you're trying to help. I think sometimes we're trying to polish up stuff so much so that we don't embarrass ourselves that we forget like what the mission is. Don't get me wrong. I like the lighting on me right now. It looks better, but I was willing just to press forward. So when someone really, and I want to connect with this because it's been like that even in my real estate business. When people were like, hey, like I'm teaching a class tomorrow with about 60 people, and it's how I built my repeat and referral system. And in that class, I do the same stuff. I'm somebody who, like, when something cool is happening in my life, I just like to connect to the moment when it all started. And when it all started is always like these weird feelings where you're sitting back, maybe you're insecure, but like you just still go. And so I think it's cool that, like, you know, Ryan not only joined EXP, listening to the podcast, that's how he got to know me. Like, he's sitting in his car listening to me probably right now. And it's just special that, like, we're going to build something so cool, and that it was just from like the podcast, and now his reputation in the community is going to keep going. So maybe I started, I started the process with the putting on the podcast. He found me. I don't know how I listened. So like I started, he listened, but now like his good reputation and him being just like me and actually caring about other agents and wanting to root for them and see them win. That's why I think we're going to be the biggest brokerage ever. Like, I think that we're in a position now with these revenue share companies where we're running these models now where we don't have to start our own brokerages. Like, we can, what's interesting is I was on a podcast earlier and I was explaining this, is still to this day, like, people tell me like they're starting their own brokerage. Like, people tell me they're starting their own brokerage. I'm like, what are you going to do with that brokerage? And they're like, well, I'm going to recruit agents, retain them, help them, and then do all the BS that I got to do behind the scenes of owning this brokerage. And I'm like, wait, like, there's this new model where like you could just recruit, help, and then just like plug it into EXP and not deal with all that BS. You want to know more? No, I don't really want to know more about that. Like, I want to start my own thing. I'm like, you sound like the person who says, I'm going to be opening up a Blockbuster. Like, legitimately, like, there's Amazon Prime and Netflix right now, and you're the guy who's like, no, like, I think I'm really going to like change the world right now with this Blockbuster model or this Hollywood video model. I'm like, that's a cool story. Like, I think it might work a little bit in your little neighborhood. I don't know if it's going to scale that well. Like, we're in this new world of how things are being distributed. And so that's what I think about that, but don't want to go too far on that tangent, as I will get back to that later because I have a section on that in this podcast. But now, that was me more talking about how I'm making a connection to the agents. And so when someone's like, Chris, why did you do that hour Zoom today with that agent? I got on a Zoom today with him. Like, hear me out, guys. Like, where does this not feel like it's not what you're like? Let me tell you the scenario, and you then, I want someone to comment on this somewhere and be like, hey, Chris, I think what you did was terrible. I get on a Zoom, and this agent's telling me, I'm on this team, and I make 30%. She makes 30% off of a Zillow transaction, basically. They give her this business. She gets 30%. And she's like, I closed X amount of deals. And I'm like, hey, well, like, do you bring in business? She's like, yeah, I bring in business too. I brought in just as many pieces of business from my like network. And I'm like, well, what do you pay the brokerage? Like, what do you pay them whenever you close your personal? She's like 30%. I'm like, wait, so they give you business and you get 30%, so you give them 70 back. But like the business you bring in, you give them 30 and you make 70. I'm not understanding this. So I was like, hey, we're going to, like, what I'm going to do is I'm going to help you. I'm going to give you a spreadsheet. I want you to put this all in. And I told her this. I'm going to always go back to the gym analogy. I don't know why we understand this all so much, but it's how my brain processes this. I said, here's what's going to happen is, when I first went to my trainer and I got on the scale and I checked my body fat percentage, I was mad. And she's like, yo, bro, there's no reason to be mad at this. Like, that, you still look the same no matter what the data was. And I was like, okay, fair. So she's like, we just got to know the data now so that we can track metrics moving forward to see if you're improving. And so when I told her, hey, the spreadsheet I'm giving you, it's the scale. It's the scale. So like, don't be mad at it when you put the stuff in. Like, it is what your business weighs. And so now when you put this in, don't be mad at the scale. Like, that already is your life. You just now know what your business model looks like. But let's process this. So when I got on that hour Zoom today and I'm having that conversation with her, she got off that Zoom and I think she realized, like, wait, why did this random guy get on a Zoom with me and tell me all this stuff? And I told her, she didn't ask this question, so I just asked it for her. I said, hey, do you know what you're thinking? You're thinking, why is this random guy on the Zoom right now telling you all this stuff? And she's like, yeah, I kind of am. I've did so many of these Zooms. I can ask their questions for them. And I said, here's the deal. At your spot that you're at, there's this room. There's like probably this owner and like some business partners, and they get in that room. You ever in those meetings? She's like, no. And I'm like, yeah, they don't tell you this stuff in those meetings. That's why I'm here. And so I did that Zoom because I'm like, this is what they're talking about in those meetings that you're not allowed to get into. So I feel like this Zoom was to help you out. Here's your spreadsheet. This is what they're talking about. And here's the deal. I told her, they're doing nothing wrong. This is their model. You signed up for it. You agreed to it. It's fine. It's ethical. They're doing nothing wrong. You shook their hand. It's fine. But also what can be true is you don't have to participate in it anymore. Those both can be true. So I'm that guy who's like helping people discover that they might be in a very interesting model. So I like to say when people say, Chris, you're a recruiter, I'm like, yes, I am. I really am. I'm very confident because I wanted to tell all those stories. So when someone says, but Bowers, like you're at a brokerage where you recruit, I'm the one now defending all the recruiters out there, because how I also look at it is, I don't know if anybody wants to hear me anymore, my opinions, but this is a solo show, is I look at it as, well, the brokerage is going to recruit, right? Like the brokerage is going to recruit. Like that's their job. The brokerage is trying to find agents to come into the brokerage. So where did we get in this land now? Like, hey, the brokerage can recruit agents to the company. That makes sense, right? Like we were all recruited to our brokerage. So like, what's the difference with now the agent being able to recruit the agent to the company? So like, I feel like now, I don't know if anybody listening, knows some stuff about some like, NCAA sports, but like college sports, but like there was an era where like the players couldn't get paid. Like they couldn't get paid. So like, that's interesting. Now they can get paid. Like that was a world, like there was the blockbuster world, and there was that world in NCAA, like in the college sports. There was a world where like the college athlete couldn't get paid. And there were some college athletes that were like, because they would say, well, you're getting some free college. This guy's like, I don't even want to be here. I'm trying to play football, right? I don't even know what's going on at this college. I just want to play for this college. And the schools would say, well, you're getting an education and like you have the opportunity to go pro. And there's so many players that are like, dude, this is my prime. I'm never making it pro. They're not making it pro. Or they know they're going to make it pro for like 1 year, make the base minimum and never go any further. So there was some college athletes that are like, hey, like I'm like the Johnny Manziel. Like I'm the dude who's like in my prime in college. I want my like 20 million now because I don't know if I'll make it on the back end. That's how I look at like the brokerage game anymore. I look at it like there was like the old club that they were like, hey, we're the brokers. We bring the agents in and we make all the profits. And I'm like, that's a cool story, right? But now I'm not college athletes. It's like, hey, maybe I'm never going pro, meaning maybe I'm never starting my own brokerage. So like, can I just make like $1 off the influence? If the college is going to make some money off, people buying my jersey, shouldn't I make a little, cut of that? And I'm just saying like, hey, if I'm actually attracting agents to this brokerage, the owner of, these brokerages, they live in other states, like, who do they know in Arizona to build these things? Like really, like we are the substance of it. We're the culture of it. And so they're like, hey, we're going to deal with all that BS on the back end, all that brokerage stuff you don't want to do. But like, we're going to reward you for your recruiting. We're going to reward you for your retention, for putting stuff together to make people feel good and build bigger businesses. So that's how I look at the, kind of the newer version of like where we're going. I mean, that's taken off, man. Like there's now all these copycat brokerages like EXP. I mean, I think it's now like it's the new era. And so I think that ship sailed. I think that's going to eventually be like what all the brokerages are. The brokerages that don't have it that way, I think are going to have to figure out a model where that does work. But hear me out also. As I'm sitting here on this rant defending rev share companies and those recruiters out there like Bowers is, when I was at HomeSmart, hear me out. I was at HomeSmart, and they had me come into a room one day, and they were like, hey, we know you were from Keller Williams, and Keller Williams has really good training. We know that they're like, that's their big thing is they train agents. And they're like, we have a training room And we want to know, like, and we know your production, it's pretty good. Like, we know you're from there and we know your production. Would you like help us with putting on like the training? And what was interesting, I remember sitting in the room with two people high up. And I was like, we kind of talked it out. I said, let me think about it. I came back. Next time I came back, listen to me here. This is like 9 years ago. I didn't even know what I didn't know. I sat in there and I said, okay, cool. So I'm going to build the training program, meaning like you guys are going to probably recruit to that. So let's figure out like how many agents do we have here? And I want some profit off of any new agents that join. They looked at me like I was foreign. They were like, wait, you want part of the profit? And I'm like, well, yeah, you just like, I'm busy. I'm paid well. Like, you just asked me to help you build something. You just said I'm from a company that you like the company, and you said like you think that I can build something. Yeah, it's like, let's find a baseline. I shouldn't get anything for like what you guys have built, but like if I'm going to add to this, like what would be my percentage? And they were like, they looked at me so weird. I was like, well, what were you? I guess I'm supposed to ask, well, what were you offering? And they're like, oh, we were gonna give you a free office. And I'm like, the office I paid $350 for? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, no, I'd rather just give you $350 and have the office. I'm not poor. Like, I don't need your $350. So I'm like, are the other companies giving agents a free office for $350 to get them to lead the company? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I guess I didn't know how the insides of these things were built. And so I was trying to get profit at the time. This is not revenue. I was trying to get profit. And I mean, now go 5, 6, 7 years later, I join up with EXP and I'm like, whoa, like, where was I at? Now, EXP's been around for a while. So just think, I'm sitting in that room at HomeSmart, just knowing all that I know in this life. I told you I barely got through high school. I just built a cool company. I'm sitting in there and I'm trying to negotiate with these people and be like, hey, like, I want some profit off what I'm going to build here. There's this other company out there, EXP. It's just up and coming. But I found out now, like, it was more people out there like me. They just found their tribe and they like went with it. And then there was these other companies that were like, yo, I think we can find some people like Bowers for like an office for $350. Like, they'll help us build our company. Like, nah, bro, like, I make good money. My time is precious. I'm not going to do that. So I wanted to explain that story to like really explain all this. Like, that's at the time, that's what they wanted me to do for a free office. And so now I'm out there, you know, building a company or helping build a company, and I get some revenue off of it. So we're wrapping up here, and thank you all for listening to my, you know, how EXP changed my life. And there's probably some people that are like, bro, like, you've went off the deep end. Like, was this just like a hype session on you recruiting all these agents? I don't think so. I think this was for the listeners that, you know, one, there's a lot of agents right now that want to join EXP. They don't know enough about the model maybe, or they know about the model and they want to make that jump, but, you know, they're very comfortable with their brokerage, or they're like, hey, maybe someone listened to this today that felt empowered. Maybe there's somebody that, you know, they close a lot of transactions, or maybe they're just someone who likes, they're just a giver. There's somebody at their brokerage, you know, like there's some brokerages out there right now. Like, I talked to an agent at Keller Williams about, you know, EXP, and she's like, you know what? I'm on the, I think they call it the ALC. I'm on the ALC, and I'm like, you mean like the committee at your brokerage that you guys go to on your voluntarily time and help them build their business and you don't get paid for? Like, that's the reason why you're not moving over, is because the company figured out how to get you into a room with 6 other people and you're a part of helping build it, but you don't really get revenue off of it. Like, it just, like, there's someone listening, hopefully, that like connected to something that I said. Maybe there's twofold. Maybe there's someone out there that's like, I'm a giver. I have a really cool business and I want to help people, but I don't know where like my revenue model would be in that. It could be EXP. Or maybe you're someone listening to this and you're like, hey, maybe as I told those stories, you're like, I'm a Mike and I'm on a team and I want to know more about how you've helped that person grow. Or maybe you're an Ari, or maybe you're a Nolan, the person who I said made a lot of money and has checks sitting on his desk. Maybe you're that person and you just want to hit me up and you're like, I just want to know how to go from where I'm at to where they're at. So maybe you listen to this and you're like, hey, I want to go out and recruit. And I'm like, cool, let's go do this. You know, I'll lead from the front. Or maybe you're just an agent, it's like, hey, some of those people that you help, like, could you just hook me up? Like, I'd actually like to close 25 or 30 transactions and like change my financial future for my family forever. And I'm like, yeah, let's see either one of those people. Like, that's who I'm talking to today. And so now I want to talk about the asset that I have. And not a lot of people are comfortable talking about money. I do not know why. It's so interesting. I'm gonna talk about money for a minute. And people sometimes are like, Chris, you be talking about that money all the time. And I'm like, yeah, it's kind of important, right? Like, I'm sure, you know, a lot of statistics out there of like people getting divorced over money. I'm sure kids not going to college right now are over money. I'm sure people not driving the cars that they want to drive right now are over money. I'm sure that the churches that are trying to help feed the needy right now, it's over money, right? So I'm like, money can be something that can be talked about. I think it's something that's super important. I think it's what you do with it. And so I'm going to go on that tangent for a minute. But like with EXP right now, I have what's called an asset. You know, I own 20 rental properties and those are assets. I have a business and that's an asset. EXP to me now is an asset. It spits me off a passive income check now for what I've helped them build. I get an asset. I have a multi-million-dollar asset right now. I'm being serious when I say this. Like, everybody can run numbers their own way. I'm running my numbers my own way. This is just a full disclosure. I ran my numbers my own way, but like, I know what I have, and I have a multi-million-dollar asset that I would have had to go park a ton of money, multi-millions, into an account to spit me off a certain percentage to make what I make now a month. And so I'm like, okay, well, the alternative was to go make all these millions, go invest it into something to spit me off the money. And so instead of having to do that, I just went out and genuinely cared about people and helped them build their company. And so the money I'm getting, I either was going to get that money through revenue share, or I was going to get that by making a money off of the profits of my real estate company and parking it into a financial vehicle. So this is an asset to me, and I protect it. And I wake up, you know, daily, and I'm like, how can I protect this? And so, yep, I am a recruiter. I have an asset, and also a lot of cool stories of people's lives that will say that they now have assets and they recruit and they've changed, you know, their life and other people's lives. And so I know I went off on this, and I'm going to end it with, or I'm getting closer. Actually, I just scrolled through my notes and I got a little bit more. Sorry. But yeah, I just wanted to talk about next was the owning the brokerages. Like, if anybody's listening right now and they've got that boutique brokerage, I don't know what that actually means, but people will be like, I got this boutique brokerage. I'm like, I don't know. Does that mean, I don't know if it means small. I don't know if it means like we're very niche, which is cool. But I'm talking to that person, like, you get into this space, I feel, maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm totally wrong, but hopefully I'm right, is you start that boutique brokerage. You know, you're a realtor selling a lot of homes. That's a skill. And you're like, hey, I'm going to go bring in agents, this boutique agency, and I'm going to bring in the right people, I think is what they're saying when they say boutique. Like, I'm going to bring in the right people that feel like we're all on a team. And then you start recruiting those people, and then you realize, like, whoa, I was just an agent that was good at selling houses, and now you've got like 12 agents and you feel like you're herding cats. And that's a little bit harder. It's a new skill. And then you're like, whoa, like, oh my gosh, like 12 doesn't really make me enough money to do this. I actually make more money selling homes with my time. So like, what do I do with these 12? And then you're like, well, if I got 24, I might find my profit in this. Then you get 24 and you're like, ooh, I'm making a little bit of profit, but now you got more usernames, more passwords, more text messages. It kind of blows up. You got your E&O insurance. You've got liability. I just explained that to the boutique brokerage to say that why not take that energy? You wanted to do usually the boutique brokerage, that creativity side of you is like, I want a tribe. I want to lead. I want to impact. I want to change people's lives. And then now all of a sudden you start doing that, but then you got to deal with the logistics behind the scenes of like I just said, like the broker and the insurance and the liability and lawsuits and questions from other realtors. And it's like you started this off in this creative way of building a tribe, and it's like kind of artsy and it feels good. And then you put all this other stuff involved in it. And then it's almost like this catch-22 where you feel like the bigger this creativity and thing grows, the more you feel trapped. And so I just want to talk to those boutique brokerages or even a small brokerage and just say, like, why? You know, why don't you just take that same thing, plug it into an EXP model, and just build your tribe? Just like I did. I've got a tribe. Like, I've got people that I'm helping build. They're my people. I support them. I love them. And so you could do that. And I feel like what's interesting is went to lunch with this guy who owns not a boutique brokerage. He just owns a luxury brokerage. I don't know exactly what that means either, but he owns a luxury brokerage. I go to lunch with him, and, you know, I asked him, I said, how long have you owned your brokerage? He said, 3 years. I said, well, what's the goal daily? He's like, you know what I mean? Like, I want to recruit some more agents. And I was like, cool. I was like, so your goal now as the broker owner of your own brokerage, luxury brokerage, is to recruit more agents. How many do you have? I think he said 3. I was like, how long have you been doing this? Like 3 years. I'm like, it's taking so long? He's like, well, like just working on my website for the brokerage, and we're kind of doing some stuff, and got to get that office building still, and we're moving out of that office building. I'm like, so what's the goal of this? And he's like, I want to recruit agents. And I'm like, let me ask you a question. Are you trying to like impact lives? Are you trying to like help them build? He's like, yeah. And I'm like, I'm just letting you know, and I'm not going to say this arrogantly. I'm hopefully going to say this super confident, because that's what I am in this, is I have 145 agents in the last 3 years. And it's because I'm in flow state with this. Like every reason you started the small brokerage, every reason you started this boutique brokerage is the reason why I did. I just plugged it into not Blockbuster, and I plugged it into Netflix or Amazon Prime. I plugged it into something that streams. I plugged it into something that can go bigger. I'm in 9 states, I think, right now. Like, tell me, are your agents now going to be in 9 states? Oh, so now you're going to have brokers in 9 states? Like, I'm talking to an agent right now in Canada. So now, you're now going to have agents in 9 states and another country? Like, we don't even have the same currency, bro. Like, you're going to scale all of that. Like, we're now going across state lines. We're talking about different laws, rules, regulations. And so when I'm talking about, like, building something, they're talking about Blockbuster. And I'm like, bro, I know you've got the coolest luxury Blockbuster, but, like, no one's coming in, dude. Like, we streaming these days. Like, they're watching on the phone. Like, this is how we're doing this. Like, we're doing it on the internet. Like, we're doing Zooms. But, like, we have, like, this brick and mortar building. And I'm like my Zoom? And they're like, well, I mean, but it's like brick and mortar. I'm like, yeah, that just sounds to me like a high rent, and it's just taking from your profits. Like, what's the point of the brick and mortar? So that we can meet up. I'm like, so like Zoom, where we all meet up, we talk high level, and we get stuff done, and we all stay at home so we can save on gas, save 2 hours of our time so we can actually be super productive in our day. Well, yeah, and I'm like, okay, well, like, let's not have the Blockbuster. So I'm literally not dissing anybody with the boutique brokerage. I'm not dissing anybody. Like, there's a lot of brokerages out there, like, they're doing very well. I ain't talking to you. Like, if you're listening to this, you're like, yeah, I'm balling out and I got a boutique brokerage. You're not the person that I'm talking to. I'm talking to the 99.9% of the boutique brokerages and luxury brokerages that are small. Or, I don't know if you guys are in Arizona, you've probably heard of a few different brokerages here that were very, very big that just merged with some revenue share company. So it's like, if those people had 800, 900, 1,000 agents and they just had a merge, you could see where they were also like, yeah, like the Blockbuster doesn't get better the more customers that come in. We're still the Blockbuster. And so don't get me wrong, going on a rant, don't want to be judgy, but I do want some people to open up and be honest and say, like, did I start this to impact lives, change lives, build a tribe, help people build big businesses? And if that was the answer, I think you might be able to plug into something a little bit different. So why I think you should look at EXP is, here are some people that I think should hit me up, is if you have a team right now, and you're at another brokerage and you're not at a revenue share company, I think you should be looking at EXP. Why? I'll tell you exactly why. Luis used to be on my team. I got him to a certain level, right? I gave him leads, right? And I helped him build his real estate. I gave him leads. I helped him convert. One day he looks at, he's talking to me. We meet up. We went to, wasn't Thirsty Lion. It was a restaurant over at Desert Ridge Mall. We meet up, and he looks at me, and Luis, it looked like he was going to break up with me, and we're not dating. I look at him. I could tell it was awkward. He was nervous, and he's like, Chris, I think I'm going to go off my own. And I was like, wait, you are? So I lean in with energy. Like, he thought I was going to come back and be all combative, nervous. And I was like, you're going off on your own finally? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, so we're doing like the Severa team now? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, let's go, bro. Knuckles, all in. I lean in with energy. Because at my old brokerage, HomeSmart, I would have gave him leads, taken a big commission, helped him become a good realtor. He decides he wants to go off on his own. And then I'm like, ah, man, he's going off on his own. And he does. Cool. EXP taught him how to build his business. He needed me at the time for leads, how to be a good realtor, close transactions, get confidence, learn sales scripts. There was a day he woke up and he's like, yo, bro, I did 29 deals. I know what's up. I'm going to go do this on my own. I gave him Knuckles. You know, I gave him Knuckles. One, I care about him. I hope that he provides for his family at the highest level. And I also was like, hey, I taught you how to do some of this stuff, but here's the deal. I gave you leads and you know how to convert leads, but you don't know how to get leads, right? It's like you don't know really the business side. You were the sales agent. So now I'm going to park you over here We're going to put your brand on this stuff. And now I'm going to coach you on how to do what I was doing with you. You're now that guy. So if you have a team right now and you're like, wow, there's two things that happen when you have a team. You either have team members that suck and they clog the system and you want them to go, and they do. Or you have someone that balls out in a year. You taught them everything you know and they bounce out on you. You're like, wow, that was fun. Let's do that again. And so this is a model where you can plug people in and you can look them in the eye when they sit down at your conference room table and you interview them. And you could say, hey, here's what's going to happen. You can see how I talk different to people. I look at them and I say, hey, you're either not going to do good and you're going to leave, and that's fine. That's an option. Or you're going to do so good that you're going to be like, Bowers, I don't even need you anymore. I don't even know why I work for you anymore. I don't even want your sign anymore. I don't even know why I'm representing your logo anymore. I want to go do this on my own. And that's what I'm rooting for. I hope that you go through a graduation of your own, and that I'm not just trying to keep you here forever and have you just work my leads where I make money. So if you have a team right now, I think you should reach out. I think that's one of the bigger ones. If you're a solo agent, you're just trying to get, more transactions, reach out. I can help you. If you own your own brokerage, reach out. I think EXP solves so much. And I know what you're doing. You're sitting there listening and you're saying, like, what do you mean? Like, EXP just solves all of this? And I'm like, it does. It really does. It really does. Like, it's changed my financial future. It's changed my outlook on community. I was the guy at HomeSmart. If you asked my wife 4 years ago, I was like, what are these people talking about community? Like, I got to sell homes, make money, hang out with my wife, hang out with my dog, Emma. I don't know what you guys are talking about with community. Like, I don't even know. This is so weird that you guys are talking about this. I was that guy. I'm being honest. If you do things out in public long enough and say, like what I'm saying right now, like you say stuff long enough, you got to be open and honest when you got to change your mind. I was saying that for so long. Who needs community? Who needs community? I didn't know that I did. I needed a community that would help me build my company. I wanted to figure out how to get help. And I still to this day have people around me that are building businesses that are way bigger than I probably will ever have. And I'm seeking after them to give me help. I have people that hit me up all the time and they want help from me. I feel like the most healthiest 24 hours in this life, if you think of things like levels, stairs, if you are holding your hand down in a day and trying to bring someone up to your level, and within that same 24 hours, you have someone to raise your hand and help you up, I feel like that's the healthiest 24 hours because you never get ego. You never get too much ego because you're not just helping everybody. You're not always the hype man everyone's coming to because you're always turning around. And you're like, I need help too. It's the best 24-hour circle that you can be in. And so that's what EXP does for me. So I realized like I actually do need community, but I needed it to be the right community. I needed to be agents that were driven. I wanted agents that wanted to be profitable. I wanted to be around agents that were talking about assets. I wanted to be around agents that were talking about leverage. I wanted to be around agents that were talking about how much money they're taking out of their business and investing into other things. And so I wanted like well-rounded agents that were living good quality lives, good family lives, and also building a big business. So that's what's up. You guys just got a full round on why I believe in EXP. And so that was my 3-year journey. I just hit the 3-year mark at EXP. And so you guys know, man, I'm jazzed, and I probably ain't going to, I think I'm going to keep staying jazzed. I think I had 3 people, I think, join my EXP organization yesterday. That's special to me. I had a few people hit me up today and say they're joining my EXP organization. I think there's going to be a day that I look back and I'm like, wow, I can't, there's going to be a day where I look back and I say, I'm glad I started that podcast a few years ago. I'm glad I started that YouTube channel. Like, do you know what it's like, Johnny? You probably do. Do you know what it's like when you start a YouTube channel and you're like, got me some views, right? But when I see those views, I'm like, one, you're like, your ego slips in and you're like, really? Like, can we hide the views for just a minute until there's more to brag about? But then I thought, man, let's get ego out of this. Just like when I had the podcast and someone's like, you're doing it in your house. Like, what's up with that lighting? And I'm like, man, I'm just trying to get my art out there. Like, I'm setting up my own microphones. Like, I'm setting up my own stuff. Like, I'm trying to get my voice heard. I'm trying to help agents. I can only do this at a certain level. Like, I only have so many talents. And so now I look at this and I'm like, I'm super thankful I started all this stuff. I hope that somebody can connect to this podcast where they say, Bowers, let's talk more. And if you want to, hit me up. I mean, links in the description on how you can get a hold of me, whether you guys want to get on just a coaching call. I mean, you guys, anybody who's listened to my show long enough, you know I'm high energy. Like I promise you that on the Zoom. That's not going to change, but it's just not pressure. Like I genuinely want to meet you where you're at. I want to figure out like what I can actually do to solve any of your problems that you're having in your business life. So DM me on Instagram. You know, I'll talk to you there. If you want to hit me up, we can do a coaching call, or just keep listening to the podcast. If you're like, yo, bro, I ain't ever coming to EXP. I don't even know what you just talked about. I might have some people who I just turned you off. You might never listen to again. I'm fine with that. I had people who the first 4 minutes they heard my voice and they said, EXP, ooh, I'm out. That's fine. I have learned that, you know what, today I was just singing my song, and if someone listened to it and they're like, man, could you imagine being a singer and you just come out and like you just were like playing your song that you just wrote for like 3 weeks, you strumming that guitar and someone's like, boo. You know what I mean? You're just like, yo, bro, like I just sat back in my lab for like 3 weeks and just like poured my heart into this thing. And I've learned anymore. And I hope everyone learns that overall, you can like someone, they might sing a song here and there where you're like, I don't know about that album. Like that was a pretty sketchy album. You know, but you're like, overall, like, yeah, they're pretty good. Like, I like them. And so maybe that was this podcast for you. So hopefully you keep coming and listen. I got some new songs to sing next week. Probably have a guest on. We'll kind of switch this up. Promise you I'm going to hit you up with some EXP stuff moving forward. And so I appreciate you all listening to the show. And I'm really looking forward to the YouTube channel, some new lighting, and we're out.